It's much more fun to be his friend than it is to be his enemy.
What'd you just say?
Because this guy is fucking relentless.
The guy who actually shot me is dead.
And he won't stop.
Welcome back to BuzzBuster. I hope you are doing great. Make sure you subscribe and let's start. What if the most dangerous weapon in hip-hop right now isn't a diss track, a lawsuit, or even a federal case, but a hard drive? Because right now, 50 Cent is right in the middle of one of the wildest storms the industry has seen in years. We're talking alleged leaked footage, whispers about more documentaries on the way, low-key warnings aimed at T.I., Jay-Z's name popping up in rumors, and a growing tension across the game that if 50 really has what people think he has, things could get ugly fast. And here's where it gets even crazier. 50 isn't moving like a rapper anymore. He's moving like a mastermind behind the scenes, like a producer with a plan, like someone who knows exactly how to flip old beef into serious public pressure that can shake careers.
Say one nice thing about Ja Rule.
Oh, he's alive.
Because 50 Cent is coming.
So now this whole situation feels bigger than music. In this video, we're diving into the alleged leaked footage, the fallout from the Diddy documentary, why T.I. suddenly has people talking, how Jay-Z keeps getting pulled into the mix, and why many believe 50's documentary era might hit harder than his diss track days ever did. Because one thing about 50, when he gets quiet, that's usually when everything gets loud. Now let's get into the moment that really lit the match on all of this. When Sean Combs' The Reckoning dropped, people expected some controversy, but nobody expected the reaction to explode like it did. This didn't feel like your typical celebrity drama recap. It felt heavier, darker, and way more strategic. And one detail stood above everything else: the footage. According to reports tied to the documentary, some of the most talked about clips were allegedly filmed right before Diddy's legal situation started falling apart. And that changed everything instantly, because now this isn't just about old claims or recycled internet talk. It's about who had access, who was close enough to capture those moments, and who had cameras rolling at the worst possible time.
How did you get that footage of Diddy?
I figured most journalists would not disclose their sources.
That's when the tension in the industry really starts to rise. Because if footage like that really landed in 50's hands, people aren't looking at him like just a troll anymore. They're looking at him like someone holding serious power behind the scenes. Now people aren't just seeing him as a troll. They're looking at him like someone with real media power. Someone who can take years of tension, private moments, public accusations, and behind-the-scenes chaos, then turn it into something millions will sit down and watch. That kind of influence changes the whole game overnight. For a long time, his opponents could laugh it off. They joked about the memes, ignored the Instagram shots, and labeled him as bitter, petty, or obsessed. But once a documentary drops and starts shaping how the public sees everything on a massive level, that's different. That's when people stop joking. That's when people start paying close attention and wondering what else he might reveal.
Does he know y'all have this in the doc?
I would doubt he knows.
So when this airs, that'll be the first time that his legal team, Diddy, that everybody knows that this footage is now seeing the light of day.
And from that moment, the conversation shifted completely. It wasn't about whether 50 made his point anymore. It became about what else he might have in the vault. Because if this is what he's willing to show now, what's still being kept hidden? Now here's where things take an even wilder turn. One of the biggest topics online has been the claim that footage meant for a private project somehow got flipped and used in a way nobody expected. Just think about that for a second. Imagine trying to document your own side of the story, only for that same footage to slip out and end up working against you. That's a nightmare scenario, and that's exactly why this story spread so fast. In hip-hop, people are used to rivalry. They expect sneak disses, public callouts, and online shots. That's part of the culture. But what really makes people uneasy is something deeper. The idea of someone close switching sides or private material getting out. That's why this situation doesn't just feel messy, it feels risky, because if one set of private footage can end up outside its original circle, then it raises a bigger question for everyone watching. What else could surface next? What other conversations got recorded? What other names were mentioned? What moments were caught on camera without anyone realizing how those clips could be used later?
Combs' team firing back in a statement to NBC News, saying the Netflix so-called documentary is a shameful hit piece and that they relied on stolen footage that was never authorized for release.
That's where things start to feel tense, because once that kind of paranoia enters the room, it spreads fast and hits everybody. Now every artist, every former friend, every executive, even the people hanging around in the background are asking the same question. If 50 really has more material, whose name is coming next? And that kind of uncertainty, that's real power. Curtis Jackson understands that better than most people in hip-hop. He knows you don't always have to drop the footage to shake the room. Sometimes just the idea that you could release something is enough to make everyone uneasy. That pressure alone can have people watching every move, every word, every connection. That's why this hits so hard. It's not just about what's been shown, it's about what might be shown next. The anticipation, the silence, the unknown, it all builds tension. Because the next post, the next interview, the next trailer could suddenly pull a new name into the spotlight. And once that happens, the internet takes over and runs wild with it.
I haven't had issues with the Puffy. I don't like him like that. Like, I don't like things that he would do.
Right.
It make me
So
uncomfortable.
we're speaking on Diddy. We're speaking on Puff.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is the part people really need to pay attention to. The version of 50 Cent that artists dealt with before was already a problem. Back then, it was mixtapes, radio moments, diss tracks, public callouts, and straight-up pressure. But now, that version has leveled up. He's not just an artist with issues anymore, he's moving like a full media boss. And that changes everything. The reach is bigger, the storytelling is sharper, and the impact lasts way longer. A diss track might trend for a few days or a week, but a documentary can shape how people see a situation for years. That's a huge difference. Back in the Ja Rule era, everything played out in songs, interviews, DVDs, and the streets. Now, the battlefield is completely different. It's streaming platforms, long-form content, viral clips, and non-stop online discussions that never slow down. And that's exactly why he's seen as more dangerous now than before, because now he can control the narrative. He can take old drama, legal issues, public claims, insider stories, archived clips, and social media noise and turn all of it into something that feels bigger than music. And once the public starts feeling like a story is bigger than rap, that's when everything shifts. That's when reputations really start moving in a serious way. That's why so many people are saying this documentary era of 50 Cent feels way more intense than his rap beef days.
But I don't have that thing where, we didn't have anything. I wasn't sending nothing at him. Like, if it was on the street side like that, we would be actively doing things to each other. And we wasn't doing that.
Back then, he could embarrass you with a track. Now, he can build a whole image around your name. Now he can connect you to a larger story, and it doesn't even matter if that story is fully fair, partly true, or carefully edited. Once it catches attention, it sticks. It can follow you for years, maybe even your entire career. That's a completely different level of pressure, and people in the industry can feel it. Now let's get into T.I., because this is where things stop being general talk and start getting very direct. The tension between 50 Cent and T.I. isn't new at all. It's been there for years. But this latest situation hit differently because of how fast it got personal and how quickly it spread beyond just the two of them. At first, it looked like a typical rap rivalry coming back to life. Competitive energy, ego, legacy talk, the kind of back and forth hip-hop has always thrived on. But then, things started to escalate. The social media shots got sharper, lines started getting crossed, and suddenly it wasn't just about music anymore. Once family got mentioned, everything changed. That's the moment when it stops being entertaining and starts feeling serious. Because when family members get pulled into a situation, the tone shifts instantly.
We live in a climate that it's not even what you did, it's what they said you did.
Right.
The damage is already done by the allegation itself. So
now it's not about who has the better lyrics, it's about who can apply more pressure. And that's exactly what played out. T.I.'s side responded, King Harris stepped in, and social media took things to another level. Clips were everywhere, opinions were flying, and people were choosing sides like it was a public showdown. Then, right when everything felt like it was reaching its peak, a bigger threat entered the picture, the documentary talk. That's when the entire situation changed, because 50 hinting at a documentary is not the same as posting online jokes. A post fades away, but a documentary sticks around and keeps shaping the conversation. And once that possibility got tied to T.I.'s name, the question stopped being who's winning this beef and started becoming something much bigger and way more serious. Now the real question becomes, can T.I. control the narrative before 50 turns it into content? And that's a much tougher battle than it sounds.
Do you think Puff is cooked?
I'm not sure if he's cooked. I'm not sure how bad that it is because you know what? When we think of all of those different allegations that pile up, he's cooked.
Right.
The reason this whole documentary talk hits so hard is because of the way it was framed. The moment people started seeing phrases like surviving T.I. and Tiny, the internet instantly caught the meaning. And it didn't matter if anything official was confirmed or not. The idea alone was enough to spark reactions everywhere. That kind of labeling is powerful in a risky way, because it doesn't just hint at controversy, it places someone inside a format people already connect with scandal and serious accusations. Before a trailer drops, before a network says a word, before a single scene is even filmed, the narrative already starts forming. That's how strong framing can be, and 50 understands that better than most. He doesn't always need to show proof right away. Sometimes all he has to do is introduce the idea, and social media runs with it at full speed. And once that happens, it can affect everything. Album releases, interviews, promo plans, public image, everything gets thrown off balance. And when you look at T.I.'s situation, that's why this moment feels so tense. Trying to manage your career, your reputation, and public attention is already complicated. Adding this kind of pressure makes it even harder, because the last thing you want is someone like 50 hinting that your name could be next in a full documentary rollout. That's not just uncomfortable, that can shake everything around you. And the wild part is, even if nothing actually drops right away, the possibility still hangs in the air. And sometimes that alone is enough to keep people on edge.
Now, if the T.I. situation feels loud, emotional, and all over the internet, the Jay-Z angle is the complete opposite. It's quiet, calculated, and way more controlled. And that's exactly what makes it feel so serious. 50 Cent and Jay-Z have had tension going back decades. This isn't anything new or sudden. This goes all the way back to when 50 was coming up and throwing shots at anyone in his path.
And, you know, I remember one time walking in the studio, Bleak Beans, everybody was in there, and I was like, man, I'm telling you, man, y'all got a chance right now, just flood it, put out a lot of music, because 50 Cent is coming. And, you know, 4 months later, and it's just like, okay, now everybody got to sit on the sidelines and wait this tidal wave out.
But over time, the dynamic turned into something very one-sided in public. 50 would speak, question, compare, and push the issue, while Jay-Z stayed mostly silent or chose not to engage directly. And that silence, that became part of the tension itself, because when one person keeps talking and the other refuses to fully respond, the situation never really settles. It just stays there, building quietly in the background. It doesn't fade away, it hardens. It turns into history, into subtext, into one of those long-running Cold Wars that hip-hop fans never stop watching. And now that 50 is moving in documentary mode, that old tension is being viewed in a completely different light. Because Jay-Z isn't just another rapper, he represents business, influence, and long-term power. He's tied to major deals, major moves, and a carefully managed legacy at the highest level. So whenever 50 even slightly points in his direction, people don't take it as a joke. They assume there's something deeper behind it. That's exactly why the Jay-Z angle has everyone paying close attention. Not because something has been clearly confirmed, but because even the suggestion feels big. And in today's world, suggestion alone is enough to spark a storm. In 2026, suggestion is content. Suggestion turns into headlines, reaction videos, fan debates, and endless online discussions that stretch for weeks. That's how modern controversies grow, and 50 knows exactly how to play that game. One major reason Jay-Z keeps getting pulled into the conversation is simple: association. When people start connecting decades of relationships, shared spaces, business circles, events, and powerful figures who've all been around each other for years, speculation becomes unavoidable. And once 50's name gets involved, that speculation doesn't slow down. It multiplies fast. It spreads across platforms, picks up momentum, and pulls more attention with every mention.
There's an accusation about Jay-Z and Diddy and a teenager, 13-year-old teenager.
Right.
And we were speaking about just the statement.
Right.
The statement, you were saying you felt like that was calculated.
The statement is something from, you can tell it was written by a lawyer.
Now, to keep things real, online talk and actual proof are not the same thing, but in the court of public opinion, people don't wait around for clear answers anymore. They build theories first and figure out the facts later. And that's where things start to feel risky for anyone's name even gets mentioned. Because once people believe there could be more footage, more connections, more unseen moments, suddenly everyone linked to the situation starts looking exposed. And Jay-Z is far too big of a name for the internet to ignore. Once that uncertainty starts spreading, everything tied to that long-standing tension becomes more important. Old comments, past jokes, subtle jabs, all of it starts to carry more weight. Because now, people aren't just seeing 50 as someone talking, they're seeing him as someone possibly building something bigger behind the scenes. And once that idea takes hold, every hint, every post, every small move starts to feel like a signal or even a warning. To really understand why so many artists get uneasy whenever 50's name pops up, you have to understand how he moves. He doesn't always come in with one big explosive moment. Sometimes it's slower, more calculated. First is the trolling, then come the jokes, the reposts, the small public moments that catch attention. Then comes silence, and that silence makes people think it's over. But that's the setup, because right when people relax and think the situation faded, he comes back with something bigger. And that's what makes him so difficult to deal with. It's not just the attack, it's the consistency. He doesn't rely on music to stay relevant. He doesn't need radio support or industry approval. He can move online, pick his timing, switch into TV mode, step into executive mode, then jump into producer mode, and keep pressure going way longer than most people can handle. That's why his past rivals keep getting pulled back into conversations years later. Names like Ja Rule, The Game, Young Buck, Rick Ross, and now even more names are getting drawn into that same orbit. That's part of what built his reputation. He doesn't just win moments, he creates lasting narratives. He can take one rough chapter in someone's career and turn it into something people remember for years. And the internet doesn't forget. That's why people say being on his radar feels different. Even if you get through the situation, the story can stick around long after that. This is also why every new move he makes hits harder than it would coming from someone else. His history adds weight to everything. If a random artist says, "I'm about to expose everything," most people ignore it. But if 50 says it, people stop and pay attention.
Because he's done this before. He's turned jokes into full conversations and conversations into real pressure. He's done it through music, radio, interviews, social media, and now through full-scale productions. So even if people don't agree with his approach, even if they think it's too personal or too calculated, they still watch. Because with 50, there's always the feeling that something bigger could be coming next. That's the key right there. People watch. And once people are watching, the narrative starts moving fast. That's why his track record in hip-hop matters in this situation. Not because every feud played out the same way, and not because every story is simple, but because the overall pattern is clear.
Your favorite villain?
My favorite villain? I kind of like Diddy.
When people say I'm a troll,
I say, I don't know why you're saying I'm trolling people. I'm doing what you've conditioned me to do.
When 50 decides to stay on someone, he usually finds a way to keep that spotlight locked in place. And now with bigger platforms than ever before, there's real concern that his next move won't just be another post, it could be a full project that hits on a completely different level. Now this is where things start to get complicated, because there are really two sides to this story, and both can be true at the same time. One side says 50 is exposing real problems, calling out power structures, bringing attention to stories people were too hesitant to speak on, and pushing hip-hop to face things it used to avoid. The other side says he's also someone with a long memory, old issues, sharp instincts, and a clear pattern of turning situations into public moments that hit hard. And the truth? Both of those ideas can exist together. That's what makes this situation feel so layered, because when someone with personal history becomes the one presenting serious claims or sensitive material, people naturally start questioning the intention behind it. Is it accountability? Is it revenge? Is it storytelling? Is it strategy? Is it truth? Or a mix of everything? With 50, it might honestly be all of the above. And that's why conversations around him are never simple. He can be calculated and effective at the same time. He can be personally motivated while still shifting the bigger conversation. One moment he's joking, the next moment he's influencing how people see an entire situation. That balance is exactly what makes him hard to ignore. Because even when people don't like how he moves, they still pay attention to what happens next. And if we're being real, that might be exactly the point. So now the big question is, who should actually be paying attention right now? T.I. clearly has a reason to stay alert, not just because of the public back and forth, but because once your name gets pulled into this kind of documentary speculation cycle, things can escalate fast. Jay-Z probably isn't too comfortable being loosely connected to any conversation involving unseen footage, old tension, and 50 Cent's name. Even if nothing serious ever comes from it, the possibility alone is enough to get people talking. And once people start talking, it spreads fast. Anyone tied to past rivalries should be paying attention too, because one thing 50 is known for is reopening old chapters when it fits the bigger picture. Situations people thought were long over can suddenly come back into focus without warning. And here's the part that really stands out. It's not just rappers. That's what makes this feel so unpredictable. Actors, comedians, media figures, family members, former friends, insiders, anyone connected in any way can end up getting mentioned. Because with 50, there's no such thing as being too random or too far removed. If you speak on the situation or align yourself publicly, you could end up getting pulled into the spotlight too. And in today's social media world, getting pulled in isn't just a quick moment. It can turn into a long cycle. Clips get shared, posts get reposted, commentary keeps building, and suddenly it becomes something that sticks around for weeks or even longer. That's why a lot of people choose to stay quiet instead of pushing back. They've seen how things play out when he fully locks in on a situation. At the end of the day, this is what really matters.
Why do you not insert yourself, but you're on top of every topic, right?
Yeah, I'm just watching. I'm participating. I'm being part of culture. I'm just telling my opinion.
50 Cent has created something bigger than traditional rap beef. It's like a system where everything connects. Trolling, old issues, public narratives, media projects, audience attention, and long-form storytelling all working together. And that system is powerful because it doesn't rely on music alone anymore. He doesn't need to drop a diss track to make noise. All it takes is the right clip, the right angle, the right title, perfect timing, and sometimes even silence before everything hits.
He's not just battling people anymore, he's battling narratives. He's working through distribution, through media power, through platforms that can keep a story alive way longer than any diss track ever could. And that's exactly why this situation has everybody watching. T.I. is watching, Jay-Z is watching, old rivals are watching, former friends are watching, and the entire industry is paying attention. Because if there's one thing the last chapter made clear, it's this. When 50 starts getting quiet, posting less, and dropping small hints instead of loud moves, something bigger could already be in motion. And in today's hip-hop world,
That kind of strategy can hit harder than any traditional beef we've seen before. So now the real question is, what do you think is actually going on? Is 50 Cent exposing real truths that people didn't want out there? Or is he turning documentary storytelling into one of the most ruthless power moves the culture has ever seen? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more breakdowns, more industry stories, and more moments like this, make sure you tap in and stay connected, because this situation, it's far from finished. Make sure you hit subscribe and stay locked in, because you already know this story can flip at any moment, and you don't want to miss what happens next.
That's the tricky part about this whole situation. When stories, speculation, and real-life consequences all get mixed together, it becomes hard to separate what's strategy and what's reality. And the audience, they don't always slow down to figure that out. If something sounds big, it spreads. If it feels shocking, it trends. And once it trends, it takes on a life of its own. That's why even the idea of unreleased footage or unseen moments carries so much weight. People immediately start imagining what could be out there. And those assumptions can travel faster than any confirmed information. And in a space like hip-hop, where reputation means everything, that kind of momentum can hit hard. Because now it's not just about what actually happened, it's about what people believe might have happened. And once that belief takes hold, it can be difficult to change the direction of the conversation. That's why this moment feels bigger than just one person or one situation. It's about how quickly narratives can form and how powerful they become once the public locks in. And right now, everything is moving fast, faster than most people can respond to. Which means the pressure isn't just coming from one direction, it's coming from everywhere at once. At the same time, there's another layer people can't ignore, and that's the business side of all this. Because attention today isn't just attention, it's value. Every click, every view, every conversation adds up. And when you understand how to control that attention, you're not just part of the culture, you're influencing it. That's exactly where 50 has positioned himself. He's not just reacting to moments anymore. He's creating moments that people feel like they have to watch. And that changes the power dynamic completely. Because now, it's not about who responds the fastest. It's about who controls the biggest narrative. And when one person can shape that narrative across platforms, across formats, across audiences, that's real influence. That's why this situation feels so calculated to a lot of people.
Say one nice thing about Ja Rule.
Oh, he's alive. Because 50 Cent is coming.
Every move feels timed. Every hint feels placed. Every pause feels intentional. And whether that's fully true or not, the perception alone is enough to keep people watching closely. Because nobody wants to be caught off guard in a space where timing is everything. And right now, timing is playing a huge role in how this all unfolds. Because one well-placed moment can shift the entire conversation overnight. So now everything comes back to one final reality. This isn't slowing down anytime soon. If anything, it feels like things are just getting started. Because the more attention this gets, the more pressure builds for something bigger to happen next. And that's what everyone is waiting for. Will there be another reveal, another headline moment, another situation that pulls even more names into the spotlight? Or will the tension itself be the main story, stretching things out and keeping everyone guessing? Because at this point, even silence feels loud. Even doing nothing can keep the conversation alive. And that's what makes this so unpredictable. Nobody knows exactly how far this could go or who might end up involved before it's over. But one thing is clear, the rules have changed. This isn't just about music anymore. It's about influence, timing, storytelling, and control over how narratives are built and spread. And right now, everyone is watching closely to see who adapts and who gets caught in the middle of it. Because in this version of the game, it's not just about winning or losing. It's about how the story gets told in the first place. And once that story is out there, it can be very hard to rewrite it.
That's the evolution. That's why people feel uneasy. Because the old version of 50 could call you out in a song. But this version can turn your situation into a full story people keep watching. And in many ways, that hits harder. Songs come and go, but episodes, documentaries, and viral clips can stay in circulation for a long time. So now the question everyone seems to be asking is simple: who's next? Because whether this leads to more documentaries, more rumors, more online moments, or just more pressure behind the scenes, one thing is already clear. 50 Cent isn't just battling with lyrics anymore. He's playing a completely different game now. And that different game, it's still unfolding right now. Because the biggest move hasn't even been clearly revealed yet. That's what keeps the entire industry on edge. People aren't just reacting to what's already happened, they're reacting to what could happen next. Every post, every hint, every silence from 50 starts getting analyzed like it means something bigger, because at this point, it usually does. He's built a pattern where nothing feels random anymore. Even the smallest move can spark a wave of reactions, debates, and speculation across the internet. And the wild part is, he doesn't even have to rush. That's the advantage he has right now. He can take his time, let the tension build, let people talk themselves into a frenzy, and then drop something at the perfect moment. That kind of patience is rare. Most people react. He calculates. So now artists, executives, and even fans are all watching the same thing unfold in real time, waiting to see if this turns into another full-scale rollout, another headline moment, or something even bigger. Because once that next piece drops, it won't just be about one person anymore. It could pull multiple names, multiple stories, and multiple timelines into one conversation. And when that happens, it becomes impossible to ignore. That's the position 50 has put himself in, not just as a participant in hip-hop drama, but as someone who can shape how those stories get told. And whether people respect it, question it, or feel uncomfortable about it, they're still paying attention. Because right now, it's not just about what 50 has already done, it's about what he might do next. And that uncertainty, that's what's keeping the entire industry watching closely.
Does he know y'all have this in the doc?
I would doubt he knows.
So when this airs, that'll be the first time that his legal team, Diddy, that everybody knows that this footage is now seeing the light of day.
And here's the part that really stands out. This isn't just changing how artists deal with each other. It's changing how the audience sees everything too. Fans aren't just listening anymore. They're investigating. Every clip gets replayed. Every interview gets picked apart. Every old moment gets brought back into the spotlight. It turns into a full breakdown online where people connect dots whether they're real or not. And once that cycle starts, it doesn't slow down. It keeps building, pulling in more opinions, more reactions, more attention. That's what makes this era so different. Before, a situation could fade if the music stopped. Now, the conversation keeps going with or without new content. And 50 understands that better than most. He knows how to keep people talking without saying too much. Sometimes what he doesn't say creates even more noise than what he does. That silence, those small hints, those quick posts, they all act like sparks. And once the internet grabs onto it, it turns into something way bigger than the original moment. Now think about what that means for anyone involved. It's not just about defending yourself anymore. It's about managing a non-stop narrative that keeps evolving every day. Because once the audience locks in, they don't just watch, they participate. They share, they react, they speculate, and they keep the story alive. And that's where things start to feel overwhelming for a lot of people. Because you're not just dealing with one voice, you're dealing with millions of voices all at once. That's the real shift happening here. The power isn't just in what gets released, it's in how fast and how far it spreads. And right now, 50 is sitting right at the center of that storm. And the deeper this goes, the more it starts to feel like nobody really knows where the line is anymore. Because what starts as entertainment can quickly turn into something much heavier.